Our guest is Gordon Chang. He's an expert on East Asian policy. He's the author of The Coming Collapse of China, as well as Nuclear Showdown. North Korea Takes on the World. And Gordon, we've been wanting to talk to you about the trade tensions between the U.S. and China, because as new tariffs get added in each direction, there's a lot of hand-wringing and a lot of good economists who say, well, this is ultimately going to be a tax increase on American consumers, and in the end, they're going to be the real losers here. You have a very different view of this. You believe that the longer this battle goes on, the Chinese economy will suffer a lot more than ours. Explain why.
Well, it certainly will, because China has a trade-dependent economy, and we do not. Last year, its trade surplus with the U.S. accounted for 119.3% of its overall merchandise surplus. That's incredible dependence on access to the U.S. market. These tariffs are meant to be a remedy for the theft of U.S. intellectual property by China, which is probably somewhere between $150 to $600 billion a year. So, yes, these tariffs will hurt us, but China, up to now, has been absorbing probably more of the cost of these tariffs than we have. So President Trump has been correct on that. As he extends tariffs to all Chinese goods, which could happen in the not-too-distant future, then the percentage borne by the United States will be higher for sure. But at some point, we've got to recognize that we cannot sustain the loss of all of this IP, and that this is a critical threat to our economy and our society. And we're just got to realize that we cannot get out of decades of misguided trade policy with China and expect there will be no cost. There is a cost already, and we're going to have to bear it in ways which are more obvious than in the past.
So, at least in the short term, is there more incentive for no deal in terms of gaining the upper hand on China, or is there a way to frame a good deal that would get us what we want here?
Well, China and Xi Jinping have framed this not as a trade issue, but as an issue of national dignity. And when you start to add elements of xenophobia and nationalism, it becomes extremely hard to get to a deal, which is to say that it's not impossible. It is possible, but it's unlikely. The markets have been ignoring obvious political factors on both sides of the Pacific, pulling both countries apart, and I don't think we're going to have a trade deal anytime soon. And I think that's a good thing, because we've got to disengage our economy from China's in order to reduce our vulnerability to a militant, aggressive state. And we've got to remember, Greg, that this is not just a trade issue. China has been harming American service personnel. They tried to bring down an American cargo plane last year, Air Force plane, attempt to kill the crew. So, and they've injured our diplomats in Guangzhou consulate last year. So we shouldn't have cordial relations with a country that is attempting to kill our servicemen and women and injure our diplomats.
All of this continues to play out as North Korea behaves more and more badly, doing missile tests, as far as we can tell, or other tests in violation of previous agreements. The second Trump-Kim summit certainly went nowhere, and while the president says he's potentially open to a third one, it doesn't look like the North Koreans are ready to agree to much and actually follow through on it. Is there a way to use the trade tensions to force China to rein in North Korea?
There's all sorts of things, tools that we can use on China. The North Koreans have not reciprocated President Trump's goodwill, and Trump, basically from the middle of May of last year, has relaxed the enforcement of sanctions. That was intended to be a sign to Kim Jong-un, the North Korean ruler, but he unfortunately is continuing on a path which is dangerous. And President Trump has not changed his policies to reflect North Korea's intransigence. So this is becoming a problem for President Trump, because it is his policy which is allowing North Korea to do things which are dangerous. You know, in terms of what we can do on China, we can do a lot on China, which has continued to handle North Korea's money and to continue to violate sanctions now openly. And President Trump is allowing the Chinese to do this. So, there's all sorts of things that we can do to hammer the Chinese to help us on North Korea, but we're really not doing them, and that's President Trump's fault.
There are so many different things involving China and North Korea that demand far more attention in our society, and hopefully our conversation, among others that we'll have down the road, will help to enlighten folks on this, because they really do matter. Gordon, as always, we really appreciate your time and your insights, and we look forward to the next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Gordon Chang, expert on East Asian policy. He's the author of both Nuclear Showdown, North Korea Takes on the World, as well as The Coming Collapse of China. I'm Greg Corombos reporting for Radio America.